Made sure topped off my coolant, went for maybe a 12-mile drive, and then I pushed it back a little ways. This is all coming out in the last, I don't know, 5 or 10 minutes. So it's bad. Hey, Jim. Well, here we go. Today is the day it all begins. Gonna try to do the coolant transfer pipe on this 2006 BMW 650i. It has the N62 V8, and there is a coolant pipe that runs right down through the valley of the engine. It goes from the water pump back to, I believe, I guess the heater core. And in order to get to it, and rubber seals at both ends start to leak. There's also a big pan in the valley of the engine that has a rubber gasket on it that also begins to leak. So in order to get in there and replace it, everything pretty much has to come off the whole top of the engine. And this job is supposed to cost around $10,000 to have done professionally. And I'm going to try to do it for a lot less because the car isn't worth that much. This is step by step. So first thing I'm going to do is disconnect the battery, which is in the trunk. And then I'm going to hang some lighting here and make sure that my hood is propped up safely. So I've got wonderful lighting in here, and then we'll start taking things apart. Preparation, I have set up a couple of folding tables here. And I'm going to get a couple more smaller boxes. Got some magnetic trays set up for taking small bits of hardware as it comes off. I said this is probably around a $10,000 job. I also saw a comment on Reddit, so we know that it's accurate. But one person claimed that if you really knew what you were doing, that the coolant transfer pipe is a 1-hour job. I don't think that's going to be the case. You see my lighting? I got a LED hanging right here, and then this is more of like a little drop light, but you can adjust which way they aim, and they're very bright, and it'll make it way easier to see what I'm doing in here. Okay, so in order to test and see if this really is a 1-hour job, and spoiler, it's not. I'm going to keep track of how long it takes, and I'm going to start right now. I'm going to go back because this is all just preparation. You don't have to get yourself all set up like this. When I take everything apart, I lay it all out on the tables in the order that I take it off, and that way when I fix this car and go to put everything back together, it's very easy to do it in the right order because everything will be here. I keep all the hardware with all the different bits and pieces and try to keep it as organized as possible so I can get it back together when the time comes. All right, here we go. Okay, battery's going to be down here. There we go. So we're going to unhook the negative side first. It's a 10 millimeter, and I just use one of these little hand wrenches because these shouldn't be very tight. They break easily, so don't over tighten them when you're putting them back. So there we go. So negative side first, then positive side. There we go. I set them off to the side so there's no way they can reconnect accidentally. Next, we'll get started under here. So I have unclipped this little clip here. This is the air box where the air filter is. One here, there's a clip here. And then I opened this cover up. There's two little clips on each side that just spring back. And now you can see inside, I should be able to unplug this plug right here by just pushing that tab. It's going to take 2 hands. Then I've loosened this screw, so this is this hose clamp is loose, and I should be able to remove the top of the airbox here. Next, I will take off these 4 bolts and remove the whole big engine cover. So those 4 were 10 millimeters, pop them out, and then this cover should just pop off. And then next I'm going to go for the tray back here and the cabin filters. There's the tops here. Let's see, it looks like there's a wire clip thing here. I'm going to have to get a screwdriver to pop off probably. Come on, baby, there we go. So that's going to help me to get, there's probably a couple more screws back there, I'll show you. So I tightened this clamp here back up because I'm going to leave it attached here, and what I've done is I've come in and loosened this screw after getting the engine cover off. It exposed this screw, so I loosened that one and I was able to pop this off. So now this whole shebang comes off as one piece. So we come down the table and we put it down here because that's going to be one of the last things that I put back in. So it's furthest away on the table. So we'll just keep stacking stuff up. Hopefully keep ourselves sorted out. Nice. Clean. Yes. Before I attack back here anymore, I'm going to go ahead and remove the rest of this air box. The air box housing, it looks like we've got one here, and one here. And it looks like that might be it. You might not need to take that one. We'll have to see. Those look like they're, what, T something? Let me find out. They were T25. So I got them out and then it just popped right on out. Nice. So you can start to see kind of how involved this is going to end up being, because we're going way down in here. So all of this stuff is going to come out. So the valve adjustment motors, the fuel injection, the intake manifold, all of that's got to come out. There's a positive crank ventilation system in here. And I'm a brake job kind of guy. I'll do a starter motor or an alternator or, you know, stuff like that. This is way beyond my skill level, so this is pushing me quite a bit past my comfort zone. Hopefully I can pull it off. So to get this cabin filter cover off, you already saw where I tipped this clip forward, and then right here is a little plastic rivet. You just need to rotate it like a quarter of a turn and it lets go. Ooh, look at all that. I better go get my vacuum. This side is the same thing but mirror image, so there's a wire clip on there. That same kind of rivet right there. This side's different because there are 2 electrical connections and you have to push down this little tab right here and make this thing kick up. And it's got to come up fairly high in order to pull off of the plug easily. Okay, so this was also full of leaves. That's what you get for parking your car outside and not covering it. If it had a cover on it, all that stuff wouldn't end up all falling in here. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is start looking for any sort of connectors, because I want to take this whole pan out. There are a couple of little plastic inserts here that are just popped in there, and they are where supposedly it stops debris from going down into your fender drain. And there'll be another one over on the other side that just pops out. And then I see a couple more of those quarter turn hex head thingies there and there. Have to look for more. And then I'm just going to pop this trim piece. It just pops right off. Okay, this thing was kind of a pain. It's a thing that just slips in all of these central points here. And once you pop it off, there's some attachments underneath. But in order to get this off, it's in there very tight. So I had to actually use a hammer. Kind of set up like this. Here's our piece. This is the passenger side, and I got this rubber mallet and hooked it on the edge here, and then gave it a sharp whack or two with this other soft blow mallet, and it went pop and came off. But it was kind of a pain. Yeah. If I think that was a pain, oh. Okay, back to it. I'm gonna pull out that one there, and I already released these two, so we'll see where else it seems like it sticking. All right, so after making sure that those, and then there's another one of the quarter turn things here, making sure that those are loose, then there is a T25 right here, and then the whole shebang should come out. Yeah, there we go. I am in this about an hour. This is definitely not a 1 hour job. All right, what's next? So I guess I'm going to start right here with the low-hanging fruit up at the top. We've got a, I guess this is the PCV. So I'm going to have to try to disconnect that hose there and up here and over here, and they're all made of plastic. And this car is old, and the plastic, a lot of it looks like that. The stuff around the edge of the windshield, it's just rotted away. So all of this stuff is most likely going to be brittle, and I'm going to touch it as gently as I can, but I'm running the real risk of breaking stuff, and if I do, that's just running up my parts budget. Okay, well, to give myself a little more room here on that connector, these engine covers just pop right off. It's made of plastic. Okay, I got them. They weren't very easy. You got to have a lot of hand strength if you're going to squeeze where they tell you to, enough to make the little tabs on the sides pop out enough to release. I found I had to help them a little bit with a small pick and hope that I didn't break anything, and it doesn't look like I did, so I got away with it. It has started raining. So next here, I think it's time to pull the valvetronic motors. That one and that one, those are the things that adjust the valve timing electronically. There's four 4mm hex screws. You can see I already have a hex key back there, and I've been told that they make a troubling noise when you remove them. They kind of go whoop and unwind themselves, but it's okay because you have to screw them back in when you're reinstalling them later. So I think I'm going to take those out, and then after that I'm going to evacuate the cooling system of its coolant with my shop vac. Okay, I found a little hex tool for my screw gun, and it looks like it's backing out as I'm backing out the last screw, so let's see if it makes some horrible noise. Woo! Okay, yeah, I can see what they made. And you make sure before you take this out that there's a hash mark on here so you can get it back in where it's supposed to be. And now I also have already unplugged this plug from here. There's a little clip on the top and the bottom that I pried up very carefully because it's plastic. And then I took this plug off the top and again carefully because it's plastic. So far so good. That wasn't too terrible. Whew. Raining hard. So that's what that little jewel looks like inside. Alright, so I'm going to make sure and keep this one labeled as which side it came out of. Alright, the first bad thing has happened. I'm going to plug this up with something, but you'll see that this is where that VVT motor thingy came off. And there's an O-ring, but you can see where somebody has smeared sealant clumsily all the way around. It's not supposed to be sealed like that. It's supposed to seal just with the O-ring. So that's not a good sign. And also what really stinks is when I pulled out this last screw, it fell down into the bottomless pit. I tried a magnetic tool. Maybe I need a bright flashlight to aim down there and see if I can see it somewhere. But I dropped the stupid screw down into the V of the engine. Maybe I'll find it later when I take out more of this crap, but all right, I'm going to try to carefully take out the one on the other side. I was much more careful taking out the second one and did not lose one of the screws, but I'm going to put what screws I have in this little box and snap the lid on and put it with the parts they hold down, and that way we'll never have a problem figuring out what stuff goes where. So I am going to evacuate the system of coolant, but first off I was going to take out this one and that one and the two over there and remove these brackets, and looky, I got okay. Right underneath that bracket, that's the screw I lost. Oh, look at that. Yay. All right. The world is a better place than I thought. As I'm taking these parts off, I noticed they have a different type of screw one side to the other. Probably doesn't make any difference, but I'm labeling these so I know which side it came from, which end is towards the front of the car, and then I'm going to actually tape these screws down to this piece when I lift them out of here, and that way it'll be real easy to put them back in and orient them correctly. And I'm going to go ahead and pull that one and that one. And it's interesting that that bracket, there's not a mirror image over on this side. So I will pull that one off, capture all the hardware, and tape it to the one that I've already labeled that I took off here. Pulling all the coolant all the way up out of the engine and the radiator, because I have it opened up right there. The top radiator hose has been disconnected, so it vents everything. And I can feel the liquid coming up. Well, I lost probably half a gallon on the floor, which no big deal. But then I have extracted a couple more gallons down there in the bottom, so that's pretty good. Next, I'm going to disconnect these upper hoses. It looks like another T30. I am replacing this expansion tank. It looks kind of nasty inside, and it's supposed to have a little red floaty thing that is it's not, it's gone. So I have a new one, and out that one comes. in order to take these hoses off, you see the little wire. I use a little tiny pick, and I grab the wire and I slide it up just a little bit. You don't want to take it all the way off. Just pop it up a little ways and it will release the hose without wrecking it. If you pop it all the way off, yeah, it's wrecked pretty much. You got to probably get a new one. These connections can be a little stubborn. So you see how high the wire is. So you can feel it when I put the little pry tool under it and then pop it up. You can feel it go click into its happy position. And then I try to wiggle this in a circle without being too rough. And it really wasn't budging. So then I used a little bit of persuasion with the screwdriver, just lightly, and it was enough to pop it loose. And it looks like I have not damaged the hose. Same story over here. Looks like that could be cleaned up a little bit. Ooh, yeah. Ooh, that one's kind of nasty in there. Anyway, that one might need to be replaced. So I'll take out that T30. It was actually a T25. So you can see I've removed it, released the tank, and I put the screw back in where it's going to want to live. It won't be in the way, and it will certainly keep it where it should go. There's another one over here, which I've done the same thing. So now the whole tank is loose. I just have this one hose down here to release, and I think my tank is out. Okay, I take my pick, and I get it underneath that wire. Slide it under, a little further up, and then I use it like a fulcrum, pry up the wire until it goes click. There, click. That's how you release one of these hoses in a BMW. There is also a plug, an electrical connection on the bottom. So that one's easy to unplug. It's out, it's all good. It's sitting on the box with the new one in it. Okay, I'm going to call it a day. I put in about 3 hours on this today and feel like I got reasonably far. So now the next step is going to be, I'm going to try to move, see what I can unhook. But this whole wiring harness, I have to be able to kind of peel it back on both sides because the whole intake manifold has to be able to come up out of there. So I have to unhook enough stuff to peel these back, which I think is going to be like here and maybe here, and I'll have to see. Start again tomorrow. Disconnected this guy from down here to give us a little more flex up here. I pulled them out of this little holder, and yeah, and I unplugged this guy from right here, and now we're getting enough room to maybe, at least in the front, back there it's still holding on. Up here, I'm going to have to do the same. I unplugged this plug from here, and I'll loosen some of these other ones so we can lay it back. I saw in another video where their vehicle, the wiring harnesses here, were run underneath this fuel line. So in order to solve that problem without having to unhook everything from down underneath, then he took out the T30 there, and there's another one in the back, and then popped the fuel rail, flopped it back on this flex part here enough to get the wiring harness and put it back on top. Mine, luckily, they were already both on top. It doesn't get to 150,000 miles without ever having been apart. So thankfully, whoever had this apart in the past put it back in a much more user-friendly way. So now in order to give myself more room here, I'm going to disconnect this guy and this one right here. And you don't have to label these because the plugs are all different. You can't really go wrong putting them back. And then that should give me a lot more room to get this back and flexed out of the way. And then I think I'm going to be taking it out, the intake manifold here. I think I'm going to take it out with the fuel rails. These pieces here, I think are going to stay on the manifold. That's what I'm thinking right now. But if that's the case, then we follow the fuel line back here, and there's where we connect. So this is the fuel line into the engine, if I'm not mistaken. And it looks like if I push out this little gray clip, I'll be able to disconnect it, I think. Okay, I've used a string here, as you can see, tied it on the support and used it to pull this back and hold it out of place where I've got more clearance here to get all this stuff going. And on this side, these two go down inside here, and there is a plastic clip that holds them in place. And you have to pull them out of that to give them enough slack to be able to pull it back. Where are we? Right here. This is our fuel coming in from the fuel tank where this hooks to. So you just have to take off the gray thing, push this in, and give it a little bit of a wiggle, and it pops right off. You will spill some. Next, I'm going to pop this wire up out of these clips. I'm going to take two hands, and I'm going to move these guys out from inside the fuel rail there. Yeah, and this one, just to get them out of the way. Okay, and let me get this out of here. Okay, pop that guy out. And before anybody thinks too badly that I have all of these terrible oil leaks here and there, yeah, it's leaking oil pretty much all up and down the sides. I got a pretty good leak coming from the alternator bracket. I got leaks inside here. This project is not a mission to find and repair oil leaks. This is a coolant project. I cannot allow mission creep to weigh me down to where I don't end up fixing anything because everything is broken. So I'm going to stay focused. I'm not going to pay attention to those oil leaks. They're not so bad that they drip, drip, drip all the time. It'll leave one or two drips on the floor after just like a few days. So it's not terrible yet. So no mission creep. We're staying focused. Please ignore all oil leaks, just like I'm going to. Next up, I'm going to start pulling the nuts that hold the actual intake manifold off. There's one there, and let's see if we can see them. I'm going to shade them all here. There's one there, there's one there, there's one back there, and one in the back corner it looks like, and then the same up this side, and they're 11 millimeters. Let's see how many I can get with my little DeWalt impact here. You know, after looking at this some more, I realized that these things are crazy risky getting lost down into who knows where. So I'm going at them really carefully, and I'm going to be using the impact to just get them started. And then I'm going to manually undo them the rest of the way while I already have a magnet in there, so I can, and they are magnetic, yay, so I can catch them with, we know I'm a klutz, so I'm going to be real careful on these. Okay, first problem. I mean, the rest of this thing has been fairly straightforward, nothing really disastrous, but, and this isn't disastrous by any means, but you can see the nuts that I have loosened down in the bottom there, and I still need to do them, unscrew them the rest of the way. All of these and all the ones on the other side came out just fine. Then when we get around to this rear one, the harness thing here is in the way, so I can't go straight down like I did before. So I'm going to try to build a socket setup. I don't think we can quite see it from here, but I'm going to try to build a socket setup to go in with a flex through here and see if I can bust it loose that way. Not that big a deal, but still a complication. I was not able to make any combination of stuff work. The what used to be a dipstick here was blocking this from sliding out of the way enough, so I just kind of manhandled it back out of the way a little more where I could actually go in from the top. So I did get it off, and I was able to snag it with a magnet. So now I'll go ahead and get all the rest of the easier ones. Here's a fun little trick. I get the nut loose, like you see right here. It's loose, it turns easily, and then instead of even using the socket to turn it the rest of the way out, I will bring in my magnet and let my magnet latch on, and then turn it out with my magnet. No chance of losing it. And out she comes. I was able to successfully get all 10 of those nuts out, although I gotta tell you, I don't know how on earth I'm ever going to get that back one on this side back in again. So, but I guess I'll burn that bridge when I get to it. I think that's it then. The rest of this I'll pop it up here. I gotta get it out over this. I'll pop it up and hopefully start bringing it forward. There are plugs on the aft here that I'm gonna have to try to reach in and get. Once it comes up and comes a little forward, I can hopefully get in there and release those 3 plugs. Whoop. Okay, next problem. Which may be solving my other problems, because I cannot get this high enough to clear those little studs down there, because it's fairly thick, and so it has to come straight up fairly far, and it just can't, so I think I need to take off these strut supports. I think that's going to solve a lot of my problems. Okay, I've got the support piece out, and they were very tight, and now I have disconnected this one from right here because it was underneath my dipstick thing here, and I need more flexibility here in order for my manifold to get high enough to clear those studs. So maybe I got it now. I can't quite get it to lift up high enough and come out yet. I'm giving up, but just for today, day 2. I'm not sure how many hours. I put in about 2 hours today is all, so I'll add that and be back at it tomorrow. So I slid this up out of the rubber here, and that allowed me to have a little bit more flexibility so I could pull it back a little further and get it to where this little post finally clears the fuel rail. I think that will help. And then I'm going to unhook this, looks like some sort of ground cable, I guess, and there's another one over on this side. So let me get that done, and I'll try and pull this back a little bit again, and we'll see if I can get the manifold off. I have found another plug right here on the side of the throttle body. Let me release that, and I'm trying to pop it. Well, I found that getting the intake manifold off was a bit of a struggle. So as you can see, I ended up jacking the front of the car up fairly high, and that was so I could actually get my shop crane in here. And the first go around, I went at it from the front, and I tied it up, and I know this is probably not really recommended, but I tied it to the fuel rail mount. But I used just one string of twine, so that's kind of like a fuse, hopefully, in my mind. Anyway, I picked up the front of this enough to get it above the studs. And then I put a tool in here that I can now take out. It has a thick handle, and I know I'm not going to lose it down any of my intake ports that you'll see in a few. I put one on each side, and then I was able to lower it back down where I know the front at least is above the studs that I need to clear in order to shift it forward. And then I moved my crane over to the side here, and of course cushioned my wheel. And I worked on bringing the rear up, and the rear just popped loose of the studs and moved forward about 1/2 or 3/4 of an inch. So we're good. This worked. There was no way I could get in there. I was not strong enough. I'm a weak old man. I couldn't do it. I had to figure out a different way, and this worked and doesn't seem to have damaged anything. Well, now that I've gotten it up and forward all as far as it'll go, you see this bracket for removing the engine, I assume, is definitely our problem at this point, because that's where it's hitting, and I can't get it to come forward enough to be able to look down in here and actually see what's going on and get to any sort of plugs. I know there's 3 plugs on the back of that manifold, so I think I'm going to pull that bracket off. That's better. Yeah, see, that thing was blocking our way. So now I should be able to light it up back there and figure out what those plugs need, unplug it, and then I think we can fly this thing right on out of here. So I'm trying to get into those plugs, and I'm using a mirror here. And if you look in the mirror, you can see that there are wire clips on that plug and on the one on the other side, and I haven't looked at the one in the middle yet. So I'm going to use a little pick like this to try to reach in there. I'll probably use the mirror to help me. I have to use 2 hands, so I can't film at the same time. But I'll reach in there and find the little hoop-de-doo on that clip and catch it and hopefully be able to pop it out till it clicks, and then the plug should come undone. And then I'll repeat that on the other side, and then we'll figure out what the middle one is. Okay, got all 3 of them. I'll show you once the manifold's out of the way. But I ended up using this. It's an old military signal mirror, and I ended up sticking that down inside there where it could reflect back up and show me those plugs. So I was able to pull the little wires out of either side, and the other one just had a clip you had to press on the back, give it a little wiggle. I'll show you. What have I got going on? There we go. Nice. Okay. So the intake manifold is out. It hung up a little bit on those plugs, but here are the plugs. This center one has this little clippy thing you just have to push back here and it comes off. All right, well, Looks like a little oil leak in there. So first thing I'm going to do here, all of this stuff still has to come out, but these ports here are directly into the engine. So there's different ways to block them off, but I think I'm going to vacuum a little in here and then clean these surfaces off, and then I'll probably plug them with a little bit of fabric. We'll see. I'm going to call it a day for today. I think I did pretty good. I'm going to add about 2 hours to my labor count. I think that puts me up to 7. Maybe I'll do a rough cut tomorrow and make sure that I'm counting correctly. But you see I have all the intake ports blocked by this cloth, and then I'll clean all of that surface with like a Scotch-Brite so it's nice and clean and good to make good contact when we go back together. And then all the rest of this stuff still has to come out. We're still heading down. See you tomorrow. Okay, beginning of day 4. And as you can probably tell, there's no tremendous urgency on my part doing this job because I'm only doing an hour or 2 each day. Today I'll probably only get an hour in. Anyway, so what I'm going to do today is I'm going to pop all of this wiring harness out. The transfer pipe we're going for is underneath here. It's in this channel, but this whole pan has to come out. We're replacing the pan as well. So I'm going to take bolts out for the pan, and one of them, the one up at the end, holds down this metal pipe, and it sticks in here, which is the back of the water pump. So I'm going to have to go to that end and release. Looks like there's a hose back there on it that I imagine has some sort of a metal clip. Hopefully I can release it back there, and then I can remove that whole metal pipe. And then if I can get this stuff out of the way enough, I'll remove all the rest of the bolts around here and see if I can lift the pan out of there. I was able to unhook back here. It is another one of those pull up the pin sort of things. And once it was, let me zoom in there, you can see the pin pulled up. Once it was up, it really was kind of stuck. So I had to help it a little bit with very carefully prying with a screwdriver to finally get it to come loose. And then in order to get it out of here, you have to, I had to slide it forward through here to where it's touching the fan before I could get it to come up and clear to come out of there. And then I'm going to have to clean this up real good. And then there's a little O-ring that this fits into on the inside of the back of the water pump. And it was just replaced. So, you know, I might try to get away with not replacing the O-ring. We'll have to see. But I will take some Scotch-Brite or something and clean this really good. So I've taken out all the side bolts. And now there's 2 more here on the front, and there's 2 more there on the back. So I'm going to pull those and then see about trying to pull this. Got all the bolts out, and then I was able to remove this rubber connector from the water pump into our valley pan, and now I got her loose, and he's starting to slide forward. I think I'm going to need 2 hands, but this thing should be replaced every time you mess with it. If you do the water pump, replace it. If you do this job, just replace it, even though this one's probably only been in there, 300 miles. It's just good. In order to get this pan out of here without disconnecting like this hose here, this one, I don't want to disturb it too much. It's got this plastic Y piece, and it just seems like it would be an easy one to mess up and break, even though it does have regular hose clamps at the two small ends. But I was able to pop the back end up high enough to get it to slide backwards, as you can see. So I should be able to then lift this up, and I'll have to move the wire a little bit. I should be able to get it over this one without disconnecting it, hopefully. All right. And there the pan comes out of there. Ooh, look at there it is. That is the coolant transfer pipe that we're going for. Wow. Well, my pile of parts that I've been trying to keep fairly well compacted here has now jumped over onto the second table. Although this is actually just trash. I'll use it for some sort of yard art. Okay, back to our pipe. So I'm going to now take my shop vac and set it up again for wet duty and vacuum out all of this coolant that's sitting in here. I have decided to remove, it was bolted right there and right there. I've already removed the bolts. There are the same ones on this side I have not removed yet. I'm taking those out. They're 13 millimeter, and they just go up to this plug, so I'll be able to take it out completely and get it out of the way for when I'm trying to clean all these surfaces up. Obviously, I haven't vacuumed yet. Well, I've vacuumed it out a couple times. It keeps seeping back in little by little. The infamous coolant transfer pipe. I'm going to take some twine and kind of pull this wiring back a little bit, keep it out of the way a little bit better. And then I have seen somebody use a little air reciprocating saw and cut. And, you know, that seems okay. And then I saw someone use an angle grinder. And that's way more my style. But boy, if you mess up at all and nick anything around on these edges, you just wrecked your engine. So I don't know. I think I might try to see if I can squish it with some giant pliers. And I don't know. I'm going to play around with the idea here. Yeah. Not going to happen. I tried it with these big bad boys, and it just sort of laughed it off. So, yeah, going to have to cut it. Don't worry. I think I'm going to call it a day. It's been about an extra hour, so I'm up to 8 hours of labor on this. Had I done it all in one day, yeah, I could have gotten here in 8 hours. So I'll see you tomorrow. Day 5. You could see I've been at it a little bit already. I got a 16-inch by 72-inch piece of this cotton duck fabric, and I had it laying around. You guys probably don't, but you can use something else. I chose this because I had it, and I made it into a few different pieces, but obviously I lined the engine here. I've kind of made a little bit of a surgical scene out of it, and then I added these towels to the edges so I would be able to see right where my delicate edges are there. And you can see I've started a cut right there, and I was using a little air saw. This guy, I got it at Harbor Freight. It was very cheap, and it just doesn't have the ump to do it. It sounds like it would, but it doesn't. It just stalls and stalls. So, and I've got the air pressure set correctly. So I'm going to switch over to I'm going to try a Sawzall. Carefully. Okay. That blade on that old saw. Look at there. Just had to be very careful to not let the tip of the blade go down and bang into the bottom of the pan. And then when I almost got all the way through it, I switched to the other side so it didn't accidentally go through it suddenly and bang the saw blade into my delicate mounting edge that's right here. So, success should come out now. I'm going to vacuum as best I can. I'm going to vacuum out any metal debris that's in the fabric, and then I'm going to carefully fold the fabric into itself to catch any other debris that the vacuum didn't get, and very carefully remove it, and hopefully I will have kept all that metal debris contained and not in my engine. But I'm going to vacuum it again after all the fabric's out. But I'll do all that after I pull these two pipes out. We are looking at the diseased vein deep inside the heart of the beast. Oh, there it is. Well, you can kind of see why that might have started leaking here and there. All right, that's one side. Oh, it might take two hands. Okay, well that back one came out so easy. I was kind of surprised when this front one put up a bit of a fight, but I had to get my big gnarly pliers. But yeah, you can definitely see where the seal has been deteriorating here. Wow. Okay, well, let's get these out of here. I had to use my extra large pliers, these beauties, to grab that forward half of the pipe and be able to start wiggling it and pulling it at the same time. And it took a little bit of doing. Stuck kind of. All cleaned out. So I'm going to continue to come back in here and vacuum it out as I go along and clean all of these surfaces. But before I do that, I think it would be a good time. I have set up another table where I put all the tools that I've been using over there. I think it would be a good time to go through this kit. Usually I buy the cheap Chinese stuff, and this time I bought the more expensive Chinese stuff. So let's see what my kit came with. I got it on eBay. There were way cheaper ones. This one I think I paid $300 for, something like that. Okay, that's everything. Got our nice new pan. Very pretty. And now I'm going to have to transfer my clips over. There's no clips there, but you see here. So I'm going to have to take these clips off the old one and put them on my new one. And then I got this transfer pipe that's expandable. It's pretty heavy. All these gaskets. And then there's this instruction manual that talks about why it happens. And when you get over here, step one basically took me 8 hours. Step 2, okay. And there are 18 steps. So I'm going to have to study this a bit and get back with you. Oh, wait. One more thing. They shipped me these gaskets, and the manifold that I just took off has these little rubber seals, but there were no gaskets, and these gaskets, they cover all of the whole thing. So there were no gaskets when I took it apart. I'm going to have to look into that because make sure that what I have here is correct in an updated part and how I'm supposed to deal with the... It seems to me like those little rubber O-rings that are there should be replaced, but that's why I have to look into it. Well, here we can see where I have cleaned all of the mating surfaces on this bank, and I have not yet done so on this side. So it's a pretty big difference. So I'm going to do that, and then I need to extract there's a rubber seal in that hole right there that is in a kind of a groove, and I'm going to probably have to use a pick to try to pull that out of there and try to not damage the edges of the groove that it's in or scratch it up or anything. So that's going to be a fun trick. And then there's the same situation at the front here as well, where I'm going to have to pull the seal out. They came out fairly easily. This is the front one. This is the back one. Usually the front ones are worse, and this certainly is the case. Wonder why it was leaking so bad. Came out easy. Just use this pick right here. Just made sure to get into the rubber fairly good, twisting a bit, and then boop, peeled right out, no problem. Okay, so that means we are at a point. I have to still clean this surface here. We're at a point where now we're done taking out diseased parts. We're going to start installing good new parts. We're putting it back together. Woohoo! So adding the additional, hour and 3/4 that it took me to get to this point, that means I've got 9 hours, 9 3/4 hours in to this point where it starts going back together again. Okay, officially I put it together. That's our new rear seal. This is our new front seal. This one can go in anyway. It's just a regular O-ring. This one, you see, has a different kind of a shape. This flat side here, that side has to go towards the front of the car. So what I'm going to do is this little packet of lube, I'm going to squeeze some out, and I'm going to lube the hell out of this stuff. I've already cleaned the area where the old ones came out, both front and rear. So I'm going to lube the heck out of this stuff and insert it and get it seated completely in its little groove, front and rear. The new rear seal is in place. The front seal is challenging. The rear seal just kind of went right in, no problem. The front seal, even though I had it all lubed up, oriented correctly, the groove that it sits in is quite a bit further up the channel. Back here, the groove is just like right there. This one, you got to reach in a ways to find it. I was frightened that I would lose my O-ring somehow by pushing it in too far. So I was trying to just get it into the groove and then start to, it was very challenging to get it in there smoothly and perfectly and have no little wobbles or anything in it. And it has to be in there correctly or it will leak. So it's worth taking the extra time to make sure that seal is correct. Okay, now I'm going to put together the expandable pipe. It says lubricate the 3 O-rings, which I assume are these. And it shows that one, and that one. And then there's the one a little bit over that doesn't get one. So 1, 2, 3, those 3. I'll lubricate these and put them on there. After I had those 3 O-rings on, I took the outer pipe, which is this larger diameter one, and slipped it over so those O-rings are like here and here and here. And I slipped it on all the way to where it bottomed out. And then I have this little, there's a little tiny, it's like an O-ring for like a a dog collar. Hold on. All right, this little guy, he's just sitting there right now. Eventually, he's going to live in that groove. When this is expanded properly, it should be just about that length where that thing will keep this length perfect. So we have to completely collapse it in order to get it to fit into place and then expand it out. And once it's in there, click that into place, we're good to go. This goes on here, and if it's not quite long enough for it to seat properly, they give you shims that you can add underneath this nylon washer here if you need to make it a tiny bit longer. I'm struggling with this front seal. It goes on just fine here, and this pipe just won't go in. So obviously I don't have this seated properly in the groove in there, and it's hard to see and hard to get to. So I took it out. I'm going to lubricate it again, and I'm going to try to insert it again and see if I can make it work this time. Well, I'm kind of going to give up for today. I've been struggling for the last 2 hours with that front seal, and I still don't have it right, obviously, because the pipe's not in there. I can't get it to seat correctly where I can insert my pipe. It's just really frustrating. So I'm going to give up. I'm going to say, okay, good. I'll come back with fresh eyes tomorrow. Well, this is a low point. It's been hours and hours and days, and I'm stuck. So I think I damaged the seal. So now I've ordered a new set of seals and new rubber lube. I have to get the pipe at least that far in where my tape mark is. And then, I mean, I've had the pipe in. It just, I've never had it go in far enough to actually get past where this seal is. So this is very disappointing. After that somber finish to day 7, we start day 8. Even though it's actually been about 14 days since I started this project. There's a big gap between day 7 and day 8, waiting for all of my parts. What we have here is, this is the original bushing that you can see has pretty much disintegrated. And then this is the one that came with my pipe kit. But you can see I've caused like a ridge here because my pipe won't get in past this lip. And it catches on this rubber no matter how much lube I had on it. And it ended up damaging this where I think I needed to give up on it. So now I ordered an expensive setup. These, I'm sure, are Chinese knockoffs. This, I believe, is made in Europe somewhere. I'm not sure where. I have the packaging. We'll take a look. But you can see that it has a nice taper where the pipe is going to try to enter. So that should help me. This, of course, the square side goes against the timing cover towards the front of the car, and then the pipe will attack it from this tapered end. So hopefully this solves my problem. Also, I should have known when I saw the way that the packaging of their lube or their grease, their whatever you want to call it, it's just a very crookedly sealed, hand-filled thing of red ooze. So I got some of this stuff instead. I'm upping the game on the rubber lube, and I ordered this kit here. It's Earl parts, and it's a kit for all of the rubber bushings and O-rings for that expandable pipe, but made by a good company, probably of better materials. So with newfound hope, I'm going into day 8 here, and I'm going to clean out inside here again. I'm going to re-vacuum out this base of this pan. I'm going to lubricate everything in there real good, lubricate that new seal, and see if I can get it in there and seat it properly. And I changed out the lubrication and the O-rings on my expandable pipe here. It's the O-rings live like here, here, and here, and this pipe is supposed to slide in and out, but only like 1.25 inches, maybe 1.5 inches. But when I was working with it before using this lube, it seemed like I was struggling and fighting against the O-rings sticking against the inside of this pipe. It would just like move in bursts. And so I cleaned everything completely out, changed out the O-rings to the better ones, and switched over to this kind of lube. And now this thing is okay and ready to slide easily and consistently. So that should help with assembly. One other thing, real quick, is at this end that goes into the rear, there's this little bushing. And you can see it's thicker up here than it is down here. So you have to make sure when you go to final installation that you put the square side against your pipe. See here, I don't have the square side against it. You see how there's a space there. So let's turn it around. Okay. Square side against the pipe. Good. And then the final thing you have to remember is you want the thickest part of this. So I'm going to go along and probably take some calipers and measure this and find the absolute thickest point and then put a little pencil mark on it, because you're going to want that to be straight up when you install it finally in the engine. Because that hole back there, it's not a square, it's not a flat surface around the hole. It's a little bit further away at the top than it is at the bottom, and that nylon washer has to be positioned to fit that correctly in order to achieve a proper seal. I have also received my new water hose. This hose is damaged because someone glued it onto the expansion tank. And I was not able to ever replace it before because it ends up going here. These two guys, it goes through this Y piece, which is notorious for breaking. And then these each attach. One guy right there, one guy right there, and it's got just regular hose clamps on the end. So I decided to go ahead and replace this whole thing. Might as well. Got this new one. It's called a vent pipe on a BMW chart, but this is called a water hose. So what I'm going to have to do is transfer all of my clamps onto my new one. I'm going to have to get like this heat shield off of here and see if I can get that onto my new one. My little adjacent pipe clips, all of that kind of stuff I'm going to have to transfer over to my new one, which I'll do now. I didn't take it out yet because I want to be able to remember how it's routed in here. So I'll probably wait to take the old one completely out until I'm ready to put the new one in, which would be after my pipe goes in and after my valley pan goes in and all of that good stuff. Well, there we have it. After getting the correct rubber seals and the correct lubricating jelly, I was able to get this transfer pipe installed in about an hour. And I had previously wasted, I've already told you, I don't remember right now, but lots of hours and several days fighting the cheap junk. So I guess you have to spend like $700 or $800 on one of these kits if you want to get all this good stuff that's made in Europe instead of China. And I thought I was buying something better by getting the $300, $350 one instead of the $125 one. But apparently all I got was the $125 one and a bigger markup. But live and learn. All right. Hooray, it's in. So now I'm going to start putting it back together. I'm going to put the valley pan in. I'm going to spend more time cleaning the mating surface where the gasket from the valley pan will live. And then I'm going to come through here. I've already cleaned this little channel here that had some oil debris in it. I'm going to come through with compressed air. I'm going to put on my safety goggles, come through with my blowgun with compressed air, and blow out every single one of my bolt holes. These are blind holes. You don't want to have any debris or any liquid or anything like that in them, or they won't torque down properly. So after I do that, I will completely re-vacuum the whole thing, and then I'll slip on my valley pan with a new rubber connecting pipe. It's going to fit from here to my valley pan pipe. In order to get this valley pan in place and have our new connecting hose here that goes between the water pump and the valley pan, and it's very tight fit. I had it lubricated pretty good, and I also lubricated the rubber seal that is built into this valley pan. And the way I got it on here is I put it kind of in place, and then I raised the rear here up high enough for it to slip backwards so it's clearing the bottom of the whole thing. And then all I concentrated on was this connection and started working on, and everything's really lubricated very well here, and just only concentrated on this connection here. And as it started to go together, all of a sudden the back of the pan fell into place, and here we are. So now I'm going to replace, put in all of the bolts. Look how well that works. There's no doubt I got the right ones. Thank you, past me. Wiggled it around a bit to get it to line up where I could start my bolts, and I left them very loose, as you can see, and I got some started here and there like every other hole, and just kept kind of massaging it around a little bit to make sure everything's lining up where all the bolts are, bolt holes are centered. And I'll keep putting in new bolts. Okay, I've got them all started, and you really have to start these all by hand. If you try to start these with any sort of power tool, you run a really bad risk of cross-threading, and then you will be unhappy. So put them in by hand, and that way you can feel how the grooves are working and the threads are working, and you make sure you do not cross-thread anything. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to start slowly tightening them up. Ultimately, these take a 10 Newton meter torque, which is 7 foot-pounds. And I'm going to do this in sort of a crisscrossy kind of way where it allows it to go down easily. You don't want to just go 1, 2, 3, 4 around in a circle. I'm going to probably do this one first, and I'm not going to make it anywhere near the final torque. I'm going to get it where it starts to feel slightly tighter, and then I'll go around and do the whole thing, all of them to that point, and then I'll probably do a second go around at a little bit tighter, and maybe after that, maybe on the third go around, I will start bringing them down to the final 7 foot-pounds. Now they're all snugged down evenly. I'm going to switch to an actual torque wrench that's set to the final level, but I'm going to try to, like I said, just go around a few times, slowly getting closer to it. But before I do that, what I've done is I have set my torque wrench here to the correct setting, and I went to my old scrap bolt supply and found a 10 millimeter that fits just about right. I'm going to put it in my vise, clamp it down pretty good, and get a feel for what it takes to make this click, so I know what's happening when I'm doing this. I'm doing this all by hand so I don't end up stripping anything. Okay. Okay. It's not very tight. Good to know. I'll be cautious. I continue to use the crisscrossy pattern as I slowly tighten these all down. And now they're all tight enough where several of them have already shown that they are at spec torque. So now this final time, I'm going to go around in a circle and just make sure everyone, and at this point, it's just barely snugging them up. So going in a circle is primarily just to keep track and make sure that I didn't miss one. All right, all torqued. Next, I'm going to cut these cords and try to replace this wiring harness that goes onto the valley pan. Come on, this cord is tough. There we go. Let's see about that one. There we go. Just have to get it further up. Okay, so now I'm going to try to replace it into these clips here. I might have to move some stuff. So what I had to do is I had to snap it into this clip right here. And, I'm tugging it up to get it as tight up to the front of the engine as I can. And then when I bring it out here, I snap it into this clip. Oop, there we go. And then this one, and you can still see a little dent from when it was in the old one. There we go. Snapped in place. Okay, we're all good there. So next, I'm going to go to my parts table. And this table, as I explained before, now we put it on in the order that we're presented it here, and we should be in good shape. So this is the old pipe that we just replaced, so we can get rid of that. These 4 bolts are going to be for our knock sensors, which we're going to put on next. And then we're going to put on this pipe here. That's intake manifold bolts. So then we'll be reinstalling this pipe here that I think feeds the heater core. Okay, so let's put this stuff in. Now with these knock sensors, because I have them labeled so good, this one says passenger and this one says driver. It's going to be very easy to reinstall them in here in their correct orientation. Thank you, Pascott. Oopsie. Okay, this coolant pipe here, it has to be installed before this bolt because this tab goes underneath this bolt. So I'm going to have to remove this one and then install this pipe and then reinstall and retorque this particular bolt. No big deal, but you should know that. And then back here, it just ends up getting connected to this coolant pipe. It was a tight fit. I put lube on the end of the pipe and it slipped right in, and there's a little groove, so you got to kind of line it up. It doesn't go on any old which way. It has to go on in one direction. But once the lube was on there, click, it came right out. Lube is your friend, I'm telling you. Lube this end, went right into the O-ring, no problem. Lube is your friend. The knock sensor bolts are 13 millimeter and they should be torqued to 15 foot-pounds. Get back to you, but this has been a great day 8. Got a heck of a lot done. I'm feeling good about this project again. I was pretty sad at the end of day 7. And so I think it was about another, I'm going to call it 3 hours today. Probably wasn't quite that long, but I'm going to add 3 to the tally. Back at it tomorrow. Day 9. And I have installed my new vent pipe, tightened up the hose clamps, and routed it over here. And I decided that I need to do, if I'm smart, well, we already know the answer to that, but if I'm not going to be too dumb, I'm going to go ahead and install my new expansion tank and hook up all of my cooling lines and everything, and then pressure test this system while it's like this. And that way, if I've really messed something up here, I'll be able to see before everything's back in. And so I have to order a pressure test kit. It turns out I don't have one. So I just ordered one on Amazon, which means that's pretty much, well, I'm going to go ahead and do this now. And then I'm going to be waiting for my Amazon order to arrive. So that means day 10 will be several days away from now. All right, the tank is back in. All my lines are hooked up. I used a little more of that new lube on the O-ring so they all slid together real easy. And then I discovered that this one now has cracked. So it goes right from there. I think it's also the other vent hose that goes to my overflow tank. So I have to order one of those now. But since this crack here is fairly high up, it's above the top of the radiator, I'm going to go ahead and start putting coolant in. I think I'm going to go ahead and put in the actual blue correct coolant instead of just water. That way I don't have to drain it back out, because I'm proceeding forward here assuming there's not going to be any leaks. So I'm going to go ahead and start putting in the correct coolant, and then I can't really bleed the whole system and get all the air out of it until the engine's back together and it's running. But I will be able to get enough liquid in to get all of this stuff wet and full, and if it's going to keep dribbling out like it was before, I'll be able to see it. So here we go, filling it up. So this is the end of day 9, and I'm adding another about 2 hours to the total. So we're up to 22.25 hours to get here. Jeez. Okay, the beginning of day 10. And actually about 5 days has transpired since the last edit. And during that time, I became a genius and decided to put a new alternator in my X5, which you'll see in a different video. And it's, of course, now stuck for a couple days while I wait for more parts. So now I'm back to the 650. And I filled it with coolant. And it's been sitting, like I said, for 5 or 6 days. No leakage underneath whatsoever. And the other thing I was waiting for is this right here. My new hose, which I will put on here. And oh, this new hose, yeah, it's not really for this car. The one for this car that snaps in here, here, and here, that's like $50. So a slightly shorter one, which is what this one was that broke, and I think it's from a 3 series, is like $15. So that's what I'm going to put in. And once that is in, I'm going to use my new pressure, my radiator pressure tester, where you put the cap on and you pump it up. I'll show you. And we'll make sure that there's no leaks in any of this stuff that I've done before we continue and put the rest of this complicated stuff back together. So I screwed a cap onto my reservoir here. The system is full of coolant, and then I attached this quick disconnect to my cap and used this hand pump to pressurize the system, and the pressure held and there were no leaks. I went underneath and checked it out, so we're good to go. I can start putting this thing back together. Well, that's all good news, and I guess the next step is going to be, I think I'm to the point where it's time to try to put the intake manifold back on. So I'm going to take out all of my cloths, and then I'm going to use my vacuum again and re-vacuum completely everything out of all of this. And then I never got a definitive answer. I asked on social media, and no one ever told me what the correct procedure is about these rubber O-rings here. There was no gasket. It came with gaskets. These rubber O-rings, I couldn't really find any for sale online about this engine. I found a couple of 6-cylinder O-rings that look kind of the same, but so I'm going to just go ahead and put in the gaskets that came with my kit, and you can see they have a groove kind of right where the O-ring goes. So I'm going to put those gaskets in and leave these O-rings in and just hope for the best. Gaskets in. That's it for today. I only really put in an hour because I spent most of the early part of the day playing with the dumb X5. All right, see you tomorrow. Okay, day 11. Actually, it's 21 days, I believe, since I started this, but the 11th day I've worked on it. So hopefully I can make some progress. I'm going to do 2 or 3 hours on it today. I'm going to start up. Back here are the back plugs. I've got them oriented pretty good. I'm going to tie this back again like I have over here, so I've got a little more clearance. I have been very careful and vacuumed everything, and then I took compressed air and blew out any little pieces of anything that were inside the intakes there. So that's all cleaned up, and I used compressed air and blew off a lot of the loose stuff off of the manifold here, and I guess I'm going to try to put it back in. I'm about only about 10 or 15 minutes in here. I left the strings tied on from the extraction process just in case. It gives me a little extra place to hold on to. So I've got it slid in. It's still far forward enough for me to put my arm down behind and get my 3 plugs reinstalled. Just look at them real good. Look at the plugs on the back of this plastic thing and look at the plugs you've got. That'll make it a lot easier to see what you're doing with your eyes closed. Anyway, now let's see if I can shift it back carefully. I don't want to drag it across the studs that are sticking up and damage those rubber O-rings that are in the plastic side here. So I'm going to see if I can lift it up a little bit, and that's where these strings might come in handy, and maneuver it back far enough to get it to slip down over the studs. All right. Well, just like that. It's almost like this car really wants to go back together, because I was expecting a struggle. I was expecting to have to hang it off of my cherry picker again and fight with all these tight harnesses. It went in like 60 seconds. I just made sure that I wasn't hanging up on the harnesses here and just lifted back a couple times, and boink, went right down over the studs. No problem. All right, so now I'm going to do put the nuts all on it. I'm going to do the same thing, the same way I got them out. I'm going to stick them to a big magnet and then reach down with the magnet and start them where they're all already threaded and I'm on the magnet, so I run a much lower risk of dropping any down into the who knows where. I know I have my right parts because Past Me labeled it. Thanks, Past Me. So what we've got here is a magnet that I pick up my nut and make sure it's fairly centered. And then I can go in and start the nut just using the magnet. And pull the magnet away. There we go. So I won't lose any that way, hopefully. I need to stop bragging about how quick and easy this is going. First problem, I've got over half of my nuts started and realized that this is still routed under the throttle body, this wiring harness here, and it's supposed to route over the top here. So that means I'm going to have to remove all of the intake manifold nuts that I've got started. So, and then I'm going to have to tilt this up a little bit to be able to get that underneath the throttle body. Oops. Okay, so that's sorted out now. It's in its clips here. It's in its little clips back again over on both sides. And now I start over again, trying to put in the nuts without losing them. So I have all my nuts started. The back corner one there was a little trickier because you have to really, you have to kind of stress the harness a little bit to get it up enough out of the way to reach in and get it started with my straight magnet. Now I'm going to go around and I'm going to use my extension here, and it's an 11 millimeter, and I'm going to go around and do a crisscrossing pattern and just get all of them down to just snug using just this knurl here with my fingers, and get all of them equally snug that way. And then I will use a torque wrench, and the end torque on these is supposed to be only 11 foot-pounds. And when you use a torque wrench, those of you that know, and those that don't, loosen up this lock nut first, and then run the torque wrench all the way up to its highest level, and then back it all the way down to its lowest level. You could even do that a couple times. Exercise it. So 11 foot-pounds, and again, I'll go around probably 3 different times before I eventually will go and do the last loop to make sure that they're torqued correctly. Everything torqued to spec. Now I think I'm to the point where I can remove all of my helper cords here and start letting my harnesses, my electrical and hose harnesses, start falling more back into place, and finding where I can plug stuff in. Before I release anything though, I'm going to go ahead and reconnect this. Looks like a ground, and there's a spot for one here, but I don't see one. So I'm going to reconnect this one and then cut away all my cords. So now I put back the engine removal bracket, and I have reconnected the fuel. It just slides on, click, no problem. Next, I'm going to go to my box here, and these are the brackets that go on the top of the engine. I think those are coming up soon. Then I have to start thinking about putting in the valvetronic motors. And I have my frame brace here. I could probably put any of these in now. I think I'm going to start with these guys. Past me taking care of it again. Make it really easy to put this in. I think this goes in against the, and then I've taped the bolts there, so that'll orient properly. Bolt goes in, then that thing sticks up, and that's where the final plastic cover bolts. But I won't have to guess because everything's labeled. Thank you, me. Okay, so this side of the wiring harness is down, and so I started to plug back in. Random plugs I see, the knock sensor here, I'm going to plug in. Ooh, right now. There we go. And I'm going to continue doing that here. And then I'll move over to this side and figure out what this situation is. I think there was 2 brackets. Get that one bolted down, start doing the same thing with hooking stuff up. We're moving right along here. I've got mostly everything plugged in. I've still got a couple here, randos, that I know one of them probably goes to the mass airflow sensor and stuff that's not in here yet. So I'm looking for obvious stuff. All that's plugged in. I think I'm now to the point where it's time to start thinking about putting in my valvetronic motors. And as you see here, it's got gunk everywhere. So I'm going to clean this off. I've got a new O-ring for here, and I'm going to plug this hole so I can go along and just totally clean all of this stupid gasket maker off of here. The PCV hose went in with no problem. I was very careful because, you know, it's old, but it all clicked back together beautifully. I twisted these in until they kind of bottomed out a little bit and then aligned the original hash marks here and then screwed them down. So I have read where you may have to have a better scan tool. I don't know if my scan tool will be able to do it, where it has to relearn the limits of the travel on the motor here. I guess we'll find out. Somebody said if you put them back where they were, they'll be fine. Doesn't have to relearn. Who knows if that's what I actually did. But I'm getting close. I think I will put on this air intake box so I can hook up my mass airflow sensor, and then I can hook up my battery, give it a test start, see if the whole thing blows up. Done. Okay, here we go. First startup. Oh, I hope this goes well. Come on, baby. Oh boy. Oh! Wow. It sounds okay. All right, I think I'm just gonna let it idle for a couple of minutes and just live and be happy while I inspect everything under the hood to see what's leaking. Purring like a kid. Nice. I guess I could put the back part back on and finish putting this engine back together because this seems pretty good. No leaks. Nice. Problem is I can't test drive it because my X5 is still apart. I'm waiting, you know, like I said, on parts. They'll be here in a couple of days, so I can't really take it out for a test drive until the X5 is done. But still, I think I fixed it as it idles erratically. All right. Well, there we have it. It's all back together. Everything's gone off the table. Well, that table, still working on that. But everything's gone off the table. It's all back in. I started it. I've run it for a while. Everything seems to be great. It's not leaking anything. I can't take it for a test drive. Yeah, but looks good. So 3 more hours today. So I have a total of 26 1/4 hours in this full repair. That's not too bad if you're considering a $10,000 bill at a workshop. I mean, I did spend, what did I spend? Let me look here. I'll figure it out. Did a few local test runs, and it passed no problem, no leaks. And today I took it for about a 50-mile run, and it's running great. So 26 and a quarter hours spread over about 11 days. It actually took me 3 weeks total. I spent $550 on parts and special tools. So if this was a $10,000 job, take my $550 I spent off, $94.50, 26 and a quarter hours, I'm getting still $360 an hour. And really, if I'd have started out with my European seals instead of the stupid Chinese ones that I struggled with, I could probably shave about 8 hours off of that real easy. So really, it's only about an 18-hour job or less. I'm sure it could go way faster if I've done a few of them. So some people said $4,000 is a good price for an indie shop. Well, that would still be making 190 plus an hour. So it looks like if I was to charge $18.50, and I'm not going to ever pay, charge anyone to do this. I'm just figuring out what I would have made. So if I had paid $18.50, deduct my $550 for parts and tools, I'm still getting $72.22 an hour. So, $2,500, I'm going to get $108 an hour. That kind of crazy rate. So, do it yourself. I really didn't think that this X5 was going to take longer than the 650 when I brought it in. But, things go the way they go. Thanks for watching. I'll have this fully repaired and back in business probably tomorrow.